What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the 48th episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Therapist Podcast. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in, and then thank you to my sponsor, Defense Soap. I love their products. I've used them for a long time, ever since I started training. Their stuff's all natural. It's great for getting yourself clean after training, fighting off any kind of infections off the mats in jiu-jitsu, and just keep your skin clean. They use a lot of essential oils and natural ingredients, so it's not anything harsh or abrasive to your skin and nothing that could be harmful to your body. So thank you to Defense Soap. Check them out at defensesoap.com. And so thank you to them for being a sponsor. Also, guys, I would really appreciate if you all enjoy the podcast that you can go to iTunes and leave me a review. It really helps grow the podcast. It really will help me out, in getting the podcast out to more people. So thank you guys for listening, and please leave a review if you love the podcast. On this episode, I am joined by Jiu-Jitsu black belt Kristian Woodmansee. I originally met Kristian at a seminar he did at our gym in Derby City Martial Arts. He's a black belt under Andre Galvao. He's a rooster weight, so a really lightweight competitor, and it was awesome just to kind of get his take on jiu-jitsu and his style. I really enjoyed Kristian's seminar. He's got a style where he really breaks everything down and then stops by every group that's drilling and learning techniques and gives one-on-one advice. So that was really beneficial to me. He answered questions and was really receptive to any feedback. And so thank you to Kristian for stopping by. If you guys get a chance, get him at your gym. Great seminar. You're going to learn something, definitely something to get your game better. So KristianWoodmansee.com. He's also on Facebook and Instagram at Kristian Woodmansee. On the podcast, we delve into, Kristian's start in jiu-jitsu, what kind of drew him and interested him in jiu-jitsu, how he trains, traveling to different gyms and training under a variety of high-level coaches, his desire to be the best, training and competing through injuries, how he's managed to start his own gym. We even get into his tattoos and some of his favorites, some of his most unique ones, some of his regretted tattoos that he's gotten. So it was a fun podcast and so much to learn from Kristian. I learned a ton talking to him. He's a really interesting guy, a unique perspective on a lot of things, and he didn't hold anything back, and I appreciate that so much. So I love the discussion. I loved, talking jiu-jitsu and talking martial arts with him. So I hope you guys love the podcast. Thank you to Kristian, and here we go. How long have you been training jiu-jitsu?
A little bit over 10 years.
Yeah, I've been about this. I started in 2007, I think. I was actually in the middle of physical therapy school when I started training. But, I never imagined, that we could make, or you or somebody can make a career out of jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
that shit didn't seem possible. You know what I mean?
Back then, even when I was training, because no, it wasn't possible. Everybody that I experienced, they did it as a hobby, and some people oh yeah, I compete, but it was nowhere near the level it is.
What do you think changed? What do you think is caused it or allowed it to grow in popularity? For me personally, it was I grew up in it, in 1993, my dad brought home the VHS. I tell a story all the time. And the first UFC I actually saw was UFC 6 with Oleg Taktarov. And I just loved, he fought Tank Abbott and all that shit. And I was like, this is crazy. All these mismatches. And Tank was one of those crazy guys. He could just throw hands. It was fun to watch him. But I don't know. I never thought it would get to this point. I always thought the UFC would always be kind of underground. And I kind of liked it that way in a sense. But also it's great that it got out.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I didn't start watching. I didn't have any knowledge, experience whatsoever with martial arts until I started doing jiu-jitsu. So I was oh, UFC, but it was very, in my mind, in my life and reality, it didn't exist. But I think it's escalated so quickly just because of modern day technology and social media, and you got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all this other stuff. So it allows you to interact with more people. So the ability to be able to experience and talk to these people that are fighting, make it more exciting as well. But I think all sports, just in the past decade have kind of like grown just because it's like, oh, I didn't know that existed, or like, oh, it's when you have the internet, more people can be connected to it, so now people are learning faster, stronger, getting better, and that. But I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was at this level until like 6 years ago.
Right.
What's IBJJF? I never heard of that before. Like it was just completely different back then. But I mean, now there's people that are making careers off it. They've got very self-sustaining, successful careers off of it.
For
Even
sure.
if they don't just compete now, they take that into having an academy or business in that. It's huge now. So I mean, it never existed back then. Everybody that I met with, they're like, no, I do this as fun. I don't even get paid. I don't make money. And it's like, that's crazy. And then switched.
Yeah. What did you do growing up? What did you get into? You're always a smaller guy. I mean, were you always small even as a kid? You're kind of like, I'm smaller than everybody else. So
yeah. I mean, I played sports. I played baseball, but it was just kind of like something that you did as a child. But then in high school, I played soccer. I enjoyed soccer a lot, so I was constantly doing that. And I tried to wrestle, but I was so small and I sucked so bad. I literally tried it for like 2 weeks and I just stopped. But I played paintball, like professional paintball, at a very like high level for like 6-7 years, and that kind of just transcended into like, oh, okay, I'm over this now. I just want to do something else. And
right. What drew you? Is there anything particular that drew you to paintball? Why did you want to get good at that? I mean, obviously, there's not like. I mean, I guess there are some paintball leagues out there, but what was it? Just something that kind of came to you naturally?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've no matter what I do, even if it's something that's the first time or something that I've spent a lot of time doing, I'm kind of like naturally talented. I pick it up quickly. I'm not great at it, but it's something like, be like, oh, check this out. Can you do it? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Like, I'm not great at it, but it's something that I can pick up very quickly. And at that age, I was so drawn into the aspect of like, I didn't have a great childhood either, so it gave me this kind of escape of being able to get away from reality, be able to leave my home, to be able to travel the country, be able to play paintball. And then I was like, I was able to, like, my friends were like, you did what? Like, so it was just, for me, it was kind of what drew me into that because it was so different. Nobody my age or anything was going on was doing that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and then I was horrible in school. I was not a kid that, like, picked up school well. I just kind of slept a lot, and I was just lazy, and I just didn't enough. But to me, it was just kind of like this was my escape, so I just stuck with it.
What about, like, what about your childhood that was kind of, like, what was bad about it?
Well, I never met, like, my birth father, really, so, like, he left, like, before I could, like, remember. My birth mother was very ill, like, mentally. She had, like, a bunch of different things that were wrong with her, so there would be days where she would bake, like, spaghetti with ice cream frosting or something like that, for, stuff like that, yeah, so there were also times, too, where, like, things were good, but to me, it was like, oh, this is how it is. I didn't know anything different. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I was a loner. I was always just like kind of like on my own. So I matured very quickly. I kind of handled my own thing, and she like kind of like got worse progressively as time went on. And then I kind of like did my own thing, and paintball allowed me to financially. I bought a car. I was able to kind of like still go to school and have to be home. So it was nice. But then so I mean, I didn't have like that kind of support system at home that a lot of people talk about, like a father, mother, whether they're divorced or not. But I was just kind of like raising myself. I didn't know what was right or wrong, what to do. I didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. So, and then I actually was adopted when I was like 16. So it was something that was super interesting. And that's when I started like still playing paintball, but it switched over. So, I mean, life was very weird for me. I have a lot of, like, I don't know how to do something because I don't know how I should have been raised or something like that. But it was just a unique situation, and I mean, it worked out. And I mean, that's what draws me really strong to family and like having like my wife and being in love with my wife and having a daughter and being like the father I never had type of thing. But it's been a blessing for sure.
Isn't that crazy though? Like, there's two different ways you can go. It's like the pattern repeats itself, or it like completely goes the opposite. You're like, this is exactly what I fucking don't want in my life, or this is exactly what I do want. That's a powerful thing too, and that might be maybe an advantage for you because I think you kind of learn to be self-reliant at a young age. And shit, I didn't, I grew up, I actually was born in Russia, and my parents immigrated. I was only 6 years old when I came, so it was kind of like for me, like growing up, kind of not knowing the language and stuff was really weird. But I caught on fairly quick, but like, I can imagine, like, I remember like not understanding like the language in school. I can't, you're not even fucking interested in school. Like, you're trying to figure out like, is everything okay at home? I have somewhere to go home. Is every, sometimes that's the thing. It's so crazy. Like school is just, it's there. It's something you're supposed to do. But man, as a young kid, I can't imagine your mind being in so many different places.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've never drawn, like I was just one of those kids where like, if you were assessing kids now and you're looking back then, you'd be like, oh, this kid's just going to be an artist. He's going to be something that's outside of what you're going to learn in school. Yeah. I mean, it was just something, it's kind of like you said too, like, at some point in time, you've got this environment that you're used to and all of a sudden it shifts, and now you're in this like environment. But for me, it was just kind of like, I was just always in an environment where I was like on my own. So, I mean, even now I'm very dependent on myself. Mm-hmm. I'll tell my staff, like, I'll handle it. Don't worry about it. And it's not that it's good or bad, but I mean, it's definitely something that's impacted me. And I created habits and a structure off like, okay, this is my character and what I'll do. But I mean, it's definitely, like you said too, I hear people all the time, like, I had a rough childhood, so I'm a shit parent or, whatever it may be. But I remember some of my youngest memories in terms of like mature memories of like, I wanted to be a dad when I grew up. I wanted to be a father. Like, that was my thing. Like, I literally remember dating girls at some point in time, and I like authentically been like, no, yeah, like, I'd love to have kids. And they're like, you what? Like, it's just like, yeah, it's just another word. So, I mean, and I think that's because that I desired to have a family so bad and I didn't have it, that I wanted to create it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a blessing. I wouldn't change anything. I mean, it was tough and it was challenging, but it definitely created what I am now.
So, where did you grow up originally? Where are you from?
So like I was like born somewhere in New Jersey, not crazy, but my birth mother moved us around a lot, but we stayed predominantly in southern New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, going around in a circle of places. But I mean, I went to high school and like I spent like a decent amount of time, like 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia, Easton, New Jersey, right over the Ben Franklin Bridge. So it's called a place called Marlton. It's like Cherry Hill. It's just this area. It's nothing crazy, but I mean, that's where I spent most of my time. But like I said, at a young age, I remember we moved every like 10 months. So it's one year. I remember being in 2 different schools and stuff like that.
Wow.
I missed a lot of school in high school because I was playing paintball. But I mean, predominantly I stayed in the area. But I mean, like I said, I never had friends, but I also made it very challenging to keep friends if I did make them.
Right.
Yeah.
What got you into paintball? I mean, was there anything particular that, like, I know, I'm just curious, because that's not something people get into very often.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I mean, my friend had a birthday party, and they all went and played paintball, and I was like, this is kind of cool, but like, it's like, because like, more than likely, what the average consumer that plays paintball plays like recreational paintball, which is like in the woods. You've got like, camouflage on and ghillie suits, which is cool, and that's what we did.
Right.
But I witnessed obviously like the sport aspect of it because they have air bunkers. It's like there's different formats like that, but they had like air bunkers and it was strategy. So I was like, I saw that and I was like, that would be interesting. And I went out and tried it. And then I was like, I like it. And then I kind of just like kept at it and became more addicted to it to terms where I was putting mental energy into it to get better, and then got on a team and then just kept playing and practicing and just kind of like went up, and then eventually like it became serious, and then got on a really serious team, and then that was it. I mean, it literally happened. That wasn't like overnight, but it happened really quickly just because paintball was so small back then. So paintball is kind of like jiu-jitsu. You have the ability to be a white belt and train a black belt. So when you were playing paintball back then, you could be practicing at a field where there's a professional team.
Yeah.
So if you're there and you have the experience, you have the ability to kind of move up really quickly.
That's such a great point. Like, jiu-jitsu's unique in the fact that, I went to the biggest tournament I ever did was Master Worlds in 2016, and it was weird because like you see all these like legends of the sport walking around, like Andre Galvao's walking around, I mean just everybody, and you're just like, what the hell? And you could be going against a guy that's a legend. You could be, I mean, it depends on your division and everything, but it's so achievable. Like you can almost reach out and touch. All these athletes, all these people that are so like Hall of Famers, so to speak, they're like attainable, they're touchable, they're it's not like in the NBA where it's like, they talk about LeBron James. You could never talk to him or shake his hand. I mean, very rarely that would be the case. But that's the unique thing about jiu-jitsu is like, you can have guys like you come in that are world champions and train, or anybody. It's wild. That's the nice thing about jiu-jitsu. That's something that's very unique about it.
No, I agree. I think I think it's a very strong characteristic of jiu-jitsu, to be able to have that ability. It's something that doesn't exist in many sports, just like you're saying. You can't go play a pickup game with Michael Jordan. It's just not going to happen,
Right.
But you can literally train under someone who you value. It happens all the time. Being in San Diego, people move here like, I wanted to train with Andre Galvao, so I moved here to train with him. It's just like, that's crazy. I never would have done that if I was you, But like, it's like, sure, no problem. But I mean, it's definitely very, very unique, and it's great that jiu-jitsu gives that ability to, and I hope it keeps it, because it's definitely something that I think is a very positive aspect of it.
So, falling out of love with like paintball and finding jiu-jitsu, tell me about that transition, that kind of time.
Yeah, I mean, paintball at that point in time, it was kind of like I grew very close with a group of friends, and we were always playing together. I would always like guest appear and play on different teams, and would travel and like whatever, but we were always together at some point in time, and it shifted really at a crucial moment where it went from being fun to where it all of a sudden felt like a job. Mm-hmm. And being a kid still at that point in time, being in my teens, I was just kind of like, what are we doing anymore? I mean, like, money is cool, and like being in a magazine is cool, and like going here is cool, but like it's supposed to be fun. So I still did it, even though it became a job, and it was something that I could save money with and travel with, but it didn't have the same spark for me. And then as soon as I was introduced to jiu-jitsu, like jiu-jitsu kind of went back into that fun category where I felt like a challenge. It felt fun. I could still do things with it. So once I realized the potential of jiu-jitsu in terms of like where the ceiling was, like, oh, okay, there's a black belt. Oh, okay, I can compete. Oh, okay, like it doesn't just exist in this little area. Then I kind of just like, okay, I'm just going to fully make the jump. I'll stop playing paintball and I'll just go to jiu-jitsu. And like, but I knew that I wanted to do jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life, the very first class. But I didn't realize the level of potential until like, it took like a couple months before me to have conversations and see.
What about that first class drew you in? Was there anything specific? Any like seeing a move or learning something and then being able to implement it? That's the one thing about jiu-jitsu that I really like. You can actually learn a move and then you can actually see it work. And that means jiu-jitsu actually works. That's one thing because you can implement it. So what was it for you? What was that in that class?
I mean, for me, like I was really young then and mentally in terms of having an ego. For me, like paintball was very easy and I was very talented at it. And I know I put my time in it. And like I said, I was always able to pick something up and do it well right away. And I put time in, I get better. But for me, jiu-jitsu was such a challenge to the point where I was kind of like, my ego was like, oh, you're not as good as you thought. And I was just kind of like, well, I can't be wrong. So I've got to keep doing this until I kind of prove myself. The challenge that was there was so personal. It was kind of like this one-on-one thing, but it was me versus myself. And it kind of put me on the fence where I had to put up or shut up. And I like that a lot because in paintball, you can play a match, up in the PSP league, and it's kind of like hockey. There's periods, and you can get. I mean, I could literally go out and get shot multiple points over and over again, but still do well, still be considered we win. In jiu-jitsu, if you tap, it's over.
Right.
So like to me, it was just kind of like, man, I like the challenge and the aspect of it was huge. So that first class, once I just saw like, and then we only learned like one technique, and I was dead tired, and I didn't have any training partners or anywhere near my size, but. To me, it's just like the challenge here is huge, so I know I can grow.
What was it like for you being like probably smallest guy in the room?
Oh, man, it was brutal. I mean, my main training partner was like over 200 pounds, and even then I was smaller than I am now. I was like skinnier. I wasn't as muscular. I mean, I'm not muscular now, but I definitely had even less muscle on me. But my brother was doing Muay Thai as well, so like he was doing jiu-jitsu with me. My brother, my adopted brother. So it was cool to like do that together. But like, I mean, it was jiu-jitsu then is completely different as now. If I look back then, I'd be like, man, that jiu-jitsu is awful. My jiu-jitsu was awful. I don't know what I was doing, but I mean, it was challenging, but I was so new at it that being small didn't really impact my jiu-jitsu until later on because I just sucked. So it didn't matter. I get in a good position, and it wasn't like, oh, their strength put me over. It's just my technique was off. So and that's what kind of also forced me to have the path that I did with trying to be as technical as I could because of my size.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. You have to be. You can't just lay on people.
Exactly.
We talked about that. Like it's all about grips and pressure and where you apply your pressure. You definitely being at your seminar, you were at our gym, you ran a seminar. It's kind of where we first met, and you know, you just showing some different grips, some grip variations. I remember the grip variation and side control. For me, that was kind of like, all right, that makes sense, and that's something I can use, because sometimes, man, people are strong. They can really buck and really move you. So if you can kind of stick with them or kind of control their hips a little bit, you can get them to turn and turn them back. I mean, you can kind of control where they're going and get your, you know, like you said, you like to take the back a lot. You know, it's a great way, and that's why I do love the gi, and we can kind of get into that too. But yeah, I think that being a smaller guy, you know, using leverage and things like that. I mean, you could be a tiny guy and go for leg locks all the time and get underneath people. It's not that hard. You know, you just kind of keep them where they're at and get your body where you need to go. So, it's unique in that aspect, that all shapes. I mean, everybody has a different style, and like, you know, your body can implement, you know, you can allow yourself to implement like unique styles. Like, you being a smaller guy, you may move so much that, you know, it's actually advantageous to you going against a bigger guy.
Yep.
Vice versa, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, and I think for me, from the particular point of view, like, I've never been big. I've never been strong. Like, I feel strong sometimes when I train with people, but I'm never able to unlock that strength. I know in terms of physicality, whether someone knows how to use it or not, that most of the time someone is physically stronger than me. And I can never beat someone. I can never say, okay, I'm going to be stronger than you right now. I cannot just gain that strength. But for me, the mental aspect, the technical aspect of being 5-6 steps ahead, knowing how the body can move and when it's going to move, and understanding the leverage points, and know, okay, if I've got this grip, this is what your options are. For me, that was jiu-jitsu. It's what still jiu-jitsu is. And that for me is what takes that strength away from that person, you know, because now it's like, I don't care if you're 200 pounds, I still feel like I can trash you in jiu-jitsu because of the amount of time that I spend mentally focusing on it. Because I know guys are just like, yeah, I really know what I'm doing. I just do it. And they just beat the shit out of me. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that. But
right.
At the end of the day, it's like, at some point in time, I've got to unlock the ability to be able to teach students and compete and train against people that are bigger than me. So if I don't know how to do it technically, I'm definitely never going to be able to do it physically. What
about as far as, like you said, 3 months in, you kind of got an idea on what you really wanted to get from jiu-jitsu. What was your goal? Like, you know, being a white belt 2-3 months in, what did you want to achieve?
I was really hungry. So like, once I realized, like, okay, I'm a white belt and there's a blue belt, my instant goal was I want to get my blue belt. And then the day I got my blue belt, I wanted my purple belt. The day I got my purple belt, I wanted my brown belt. So like, for me, that was kind of like, my approach was like, okay, let's put a physical goal on things right away. So like, if I want to achieve this belt, I know I've got to do X amount of things. So my goal was to not only get a blue belt, but to obviously be good at jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And I was in that moment of time that I grew to my blue belt. I got my blue belt very quickly. I was like, I felt like I accomplished my blue belt, and then I was this big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
And the second I accomplished those two goals is when I had a conversation with my instructor, and I switched academies to a different team to kind of be like, okay, now my next goal is purple belt and become the best in the room again. So right. That was my approach. It didn't happen then after that, because I put more research into understanding, okay, who is the best team in the world? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? I was living in this small, very small bubble that I created for myself. Right. And once I got that blue belt and it popped, that's when it went downhill. You know, it's like, oh, now we're doing jiu-jitsu. I wish I didn't get my blue belt so fast. I wish I knew more, you know. But I mean, to me, that was always the goal right away. I didn't have long-term goals or like quality goals that I have now until like I was getting my purple belt and brown belt.
You brought up a really good point. Number one, I think that we never know as much as we want to know. You know, like in jiu-jitsu, like, and the other point is, when we were blue belts, when I was a blue belt, you're like, shit, I didn't know anything. Like, these blue belts now, like, this comes up all the time in conversations, but these blue belts now are like just such high level. I mean, they're doing moves that you're like, you never even dreamed. They weren't even around. Some of these movements weren't even around. These positions weren't even around, 7-8 years ago. It's just like the level of jiu-jitsu is exponentially getting better each year. And it's just like, I know that if I was a blue belt going against these blue belts today, I mean, I don't know if I'd probably get worked. It'd be bad.
100%. I agree. Same. Yeah. I mean, the level, the standard of jiu-jitsu has definitely changed in the past.
Right.
I mean, it changes from year to year, but it's changed aggressively in the past 5-6 years, And I mean, realistically, like the people that are going to be the next generation of jiu-jitsu, they're light years ahead of where we are now.
Right,
Just like if I look back and I watch tapes of Moon Jae-Al's like 12 years ago, I feel like I'm light years ahead of those guys. So the generation, my father is different than me. My son will be that type of thing, you know. But I mean, like I have conversations now with my blue belts and the goals and like the mindset that I talk to them, that I tell them in terms of like, hey, you should consider this, think about this. Like, no, I didn't have those thoughts or those conversations with anybody until my brown and black belt, And I even had my brown belt sitting next to me while I'm talking to this blue belt. And he's like, man, like if I had this kind of information when I was a blue belt, I would be 10 times better now.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, but we didn't know better back then, I mean, to a degree, I'm sure we could have surrounded ourselves with better people in terms of experience level and having like not just good jiu-jitsu, but good quality instruction and coaching. But I mean, you did the best that you can back then. I'm sure we could have all went and trained with the Mendez brothers or Galvao or, whoever back then. But I mean, we didn't. So, I mean, like we got lost. That's it.
Well, I think it's the evolution of any sport. Like, for example, you played soccer. I don't know if you follow soccer at all. Like, if you watch Major League Soccer now versus Major League Soccer 15 years ago or when it first started, I mean, it's totally like the level like of the players, are so much better. So it's with anything, like any kind of popularization of any sport, any activity, you're going to get just the best of the best. They're going to start doing it, and they're going to do it at a high level. So you're going to get not just your everyday person training, you're going to get these actual athletes. Like, we've got some guys at our gym, blue belts, and man, they were natural, really good athletes, athletic, have time to devote. They're young. They're able to kind of really dissect, and there's all this information out there, with YouTube, instructionals, seminars, and the tournaments now. Like, there's a tournament every fucking weekend. I mean, before it was like, oh, there's one here and one there, maybe once a month, once every 2 months in the region. Now it's like every weekend there's multiple tournaments to go to, and it's just like there's so much more exposure, and that is huge. That exposure is huge to growth. I think that's the thing. People get more experience, more time on the mat, more different looks. They go to different academies, more jiu-jitsu schools are popping up, and all that's adding to the growth.
No, 100%. And I think for me, a major aspect is like, especially because jiu-jitsu is so, in terms of like you're seeking a challenge. I mean, like it kind of puts in what that quote that Vision says in Avengers, but he goes, the actual our existence creates and invites challenge. So like when I go onto the mat for pro training. And you've got Andre Galvao, Keenan Cornelius, Michael Liera Jr. You've got all these big name guys. The guys that are blue belts are accessing the same information as them, right, and they're trying to be that person. So theoretically, they're going to be better than them because they need to step up. There's some kid right now that's 6 years old outside of his house shooting a ball with the intention of being better than LeBron James.
Right.
Or like, because LeBron James exists. If LeBron James didn't exist, that challenge wouldn't exist for that kid. So every single chapter is inviting the next chapter to be better. It's just the way that it is, because the second I gain that information and I become better, I immediately give it to someone else. And I've only got the information I have, but now that person has what they have and what I just gave them.
Right.
It's just because at some point in time you go from student to teacher. Andre Galvao now doesn't take classes; he teaches classes. I mean, sure, once in a while jumps in, but that blue belt's only taking classes, so he's just purely learning. The sponge is completely dry. Andre's just wringing his out, so he can't get better because all of his information is going out and then it's coming in. So right. I mean that's huge.
So when you were looking at switching gyms, or let's first of all talk about like why did you choose to switch gyms and kind of bounce around a little bit, and what did you want to achieve by doing that? I mean, was it just trying to get the best training possible? Did you like see highlights or see film on some of these guys and you're like, I want to be like that guy, or to model my game after this person? What was kind of the process for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was always that, like I said, that challenge. Like, okay, like challenge obviously is brought on by the skill from somebody. So the more skill they have, the more challenge is going to be. So, I mean, immediately when I realized, like, okay, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to take this as far as I can, I realized, like, okay, if I wanted to be the best, I had to train the best. That was what I told myself. So I felt confident that if I didn't acquire that, I would be my growth would be stifled, and if I did acquire it, I would grow. So I was then obviously doing whatever I could within my level of knowledge that I had, my present knowledge I had. And so I went like, okay, I'm staying local. So I, spoke to people. I wasn't as involved in the jiu-jitsu scene as I could be because I wasn't competing as much as I wanted to at a high scale. But you can see from time to time who's competing at what level, whatever it may be. Like, obviously, if you go to a local small event, you're not going to see a huge name guy. So since I was doing those events, I wasn't experiencing those people. Mm-hmm. We had, luckily at that point in time, here in Philadelphia, we had multiple Lloyd Irvin affiliates. You had Brad Daddis, you had Jared Weiner, you had all these guys that were old school jiu-jitsu guys that were Lloyd Irvin affiliates now. So for me, at that point in time, it was like the best jiu-jitsu in our area is Lloyd Irvin affiliates. So then I switched teams. I went to Lloyd Irvin, and I was training with Jared Weiner and Brad Daddis and these guys. And in the area, they had the best jiu-jitsu. And then once I acquired that information, I was like, okay, like I'm growing. What I want to do, I did the same thing I did, but on a larger scale. And to me, back then, the first name that popped up was Roberto Abreu, Cyborg. So
sure.
I packed up all my stuff, and I moved to Miami, and I trained with Cyborg. And then I'm with Cyborg, and I was like, I was dealing with more challenges because I was getting better jiu-jitsu, and then my technique was increasing, but I didn't have any training partners my size. And then I was like, okay, I was fighting MMA as well, and I was just like, what do I want to do? And for me, it was like, oh, it's Robert Drysdale. So every time I just leveled up. So, I mean, I kind of like used his steps, and I went from Cyborg to Drysdale and Drysdale to Andre, because Andre, obviously, at that point in time was forging his legacy with becoming the greatest grappler of all time, and that's where I ended up going, and that's where I ended up. And that was it.
So let me ask you this, just for like a jiu-jitsu nerds out there. Give me one thing about each coach that you think they did really, really like exceptionally well. So we'll talk, Cyborg and then Robert Drysdale, and then talk about Andre Galvao. One thing you feel like they excel at.
Yeah, I mean, Cyborg is then Cyborg obviously was just new to the United States. He wasn't here for a very, very long time, but he still was putting in his time. Cyborg is an incredibly good leader in terms of example. So, like, he would try to motivate you with his words, but he would just go out there and do it. So he was a very good leader in terms of, like, physical leader. Like, this guy was, like, perfect for 400 years ago. If he was going into battle, like, everybody would be looking around, and he would just, like, bang his sword and then sprint, and everybody would follow him. That was his type of mentality. Good leadership. Robert Drysdale is probably one of the most intelligent jiu-jitsu coaches I've ever met in terms of, like, processing information, being able to watch someone and then be able to deliver strategy and, like, just break things down. For me, he was a very, very intelligent instructor. Andre is kind of like, when I experienced Andre for the first time, that first impression is he's got a very, very warm heart. He's very, very his standard is very, very specific. So I feel like Andre's greatest quality is his ability to help people create who they wanted to be. So, like, he doesn't give you anything. He just pushes you to do it. So if you walked up in there and you're like, hey, I want to be the best in the world, he will give you the ability to train with the best people in the world and gives you the opportunities that you create, but he doesn't give you anything. There's no handouts with Andre. Andre's a great father figure, but he's also got phenomenal jiu-jitsu. So, sure. I mean, in terms of technical jiu-jitsu, I learned very, very little from Andre. He didn't teach me something, and I'm like, oh, man, this changed my game. Never happened. I also went there very late, obviously, in my jiu-jitsu journey. But, like, my jiu-jitsu skyrocketed because all he realized and spoke to me about was, like, you can have whatever you want. You just got to work for it, and I'm going to give you the ability to see that, and I will support you doing it. So I was like, okay, cool, no problem. But, I mean, they're all phenomenal guys. They've all won amazing titles. But, I mean, they're all very, very strong alpha males,
sure.
But they're all completely different coaches.
What about when did you decide, like, what was the turning point to switch gyms? And was it like at a certain time like a belt level, or was it after achieving a certain accolade? And then also, did you feel like you got any kickback? Did you feel like, some coaches, like I'm sure you've heard, like don't go cross-train or don't go to their gyms. Do you feel like there was any of that? Like some coaches maybe withheld information from you or didn't invest so much time in you because they knew you were going to move on or anything like that? Did you ever notice anything?
No, I mean, for the most part, I've always done my best to be very clear with my communication. Cyborg was very supportive of me leaving. He, even said like, hey, like, who are you thinking about? He's like, oh, it's a great, like, he was very, very supportive 100% through the way. I mean, I still talk to Cyborg when I'm in Miami. I go train there. Like, he's a very, very good guy. He didn't hold back any information. He's got a completely different game than me. He's got a completely different body size, so it's different. But he literally, he gave me full access. So he slapped the book on the table and he said, if you got any questions, let me know. But not a single page was ripped out. He gave me full access. For me, when I went to Roberts and I was there, I was starting to forge who I was. When I was with Robert, I was Zenith's first world champion as an adult. That's where I won a majority of my titles. So for me, that was like kind of like when I started to really take my momentum and sprint with it at Roberts. He was also supportive, but Rob put a lot into me. In a very short period of time, I moved to Las Vegas. I'm accomplishing these things. I've also become the head instructor at his academy. I spent lots of time with him and his family and his kids. So Robert and I grew close, not only on the mat, but off the mat. So it was challenging for me to leave for both of us. And I understood, he was like, hey, this sucks and I don't like it, but at the same time, you got to do what's best for you. And we, today, we still talk, we still have a good relationship. It was challenging. But for me, when I was at Rob's, I won Worlds, I won Pan Ams, I won Europeans. I was very, very clear with understanding. I didn't feel confident being a black belt with the kind of training that I was doing because of how much I was teaching.
Right.
And when I spoke to Robert and I said, hey, is there any way I can kind of shift my training so I feel more confident? Rob was like, hey, so you just won everything at Brown. Why do you feel like if you keep doing what you're doing, you're not going to win at black? And I didn't really have a good answer for him. And I wasn't mature enough at that point in time, but I just made up my mind, and I was just like, I need to train more. And Rob was very, very keen on understanding that there's business and there's training. And he basically, through conversation, it was like, okay, well, if you want to teach, you've got to teach the classes that I give you. But if you don't want to teach and you want to train more, so it's basically you teach all the classes or you teach no classes, but now you're left with no money. So what are you going to do? So it was a very tough situation because I was putting Rob in a tough spot as a friend, as a coach, and also as my boss. Sure. So the best decision that I came up with, and he supported, was obviously that I left and I went to Ottos, where I trained just full time, and I wasn't teaching, but then I started teaching anyway. But it was the best move for me, and I think it worked out. And I missed Rob, and I mean, still to this day, it's a great relationship, but there's just something different. The environment at Rob's was very comfortable. I had money, I could eat, I could focus on whatever I wanted to do, I could have a good time, but I wasn't getting what I wanted to out of training. So for me, I wasn't feeling challenged or growing, even though I was getting great results. I needed that challenge. So I went over to Ottos, and then it was a complete shift. I felt challenged on the mat, but then I was struggling off the mat. I didn't have any money now because I wasn't teaching, and I'm just a brown belt and all this other stuff. So I mean, each move was very, very important. It was all supported, but I mean, realistically, it would have been great to probably never go to Cyborgs, to either right away go to Drysdale and then just come up through the ranks and just kind of figure out, mature, or go right to Andre, so I didn't have to waste time. But I mean, I wanted to be this great jiu-jitsu competitor. I wanted to be a very fast black belt. I wanted to go from white to black very fast. And I was on track at that until I switched over to Ottos, then Andre Saturday. So it was tough to deal with mentally.
Is there a reason why you chose that path, to go to these specific schools? Was there anything that kind of made you choose that route?
I mean, it kicks back to the best thing. So Robert Cyborg was great. To me, it was oh man, this guy's amazing. But then Robert Drysdale chokes Marcelo Garcia. He's the ADCC champion. He's fighting. It's just okay, Robert Drysdale, this guy is so respected. He's great. He's one of the best. Okay, let me go there. No other name even popped up to even think about. I'm only in Philadelphia, I'm an hour drive from Marcelo Garcia's. Why am I moving across country?
Right.
To me, that's what I told myself, so I had to have it, and the same thing with Andre. Ottos became the number one team in the world, so I said, if I want to be the best, I have to be on the best team. I didn't want to try and, because I was a world champion for Zenith, but Zenith in terms of world championships and being the best team in the world was not it. So then I was like, okay, well, why are they the best team? Because they had the best guys. Well, now that's where I have to go, and that's why I made that shift. So it was just this constant thing in my mind where where's the best, and I just kept following it.
That's that's interesting, man. It's kind of hard because some people, I think that would want to settle. Like you said, you won at Brown, you won Pans, you won Worlds, and all that was at Brown Belt. And you said you had money and you were teaching, and that's kind of the ultimate goal, really, is to win some big stuff, make a name, and teach and do this full time. And I think you kind of had that. So it's an interesting thing for me to see your kind of like how your brain works a little bit, just to keep pushing. Like you kind of put something in your head and you're like, all right, I got to do that. I got to get that done. Like, or it's going to eat at me. It's going to freaking haunt me. And that's kind of cool because not everybody has that. And maybe that goes back to your upbringing. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist by any means. I've got my own shit, to deal with, and I get my own stuff stuck in my head. But yeah, I can see that. And that's kind of, that's interesting because sometimes you want to be the best guy. You want to be like, I want to be the best guy on the mat. I know I'm number one. But then you almost like go to this other gym where people are going to be like, all right, let's see what you have. Let's see, and you're not the best guy because, there's guys bigger and stronger and guys have won stuff at black belt. So you're no longer the guy that's like that, alpha dog or whatever, That's interesting because some people, I think that's a mental thing that a lot of jiu-jitsu people struggle with, and myself too. It's like, man, it's like you look on the mat, like you probably see Keenan and Josh Hinger and all these guys, Andre Galvao, and you see all these guys like, oh shit, this is gonna be, it's gonna be a tough day, and being able to get up for that is hard. It's a hard thing to do. Yes,
it is. And it's looking back now, if I stayed with Rob, I think I would have had a very good life.
Sure,
if I were to stay there and I look at where am I at now in terms of there, Rob's got a phenomenal affiliation. I knew I would have got my black belt from Rob. I don't know how great my jiu-jitsu would have been or how far I would go in terms of competition, but I knew I would have been taken care of. I knew I would have been able to open up my own academy. He would have supported it. I could have stayed in Las Vegas. I could have had a family there. It could have been very comfortable, and I could have been very successful in terms of I took jiu-jitsu, I made a career, I was this, and then now I had this. Yeah, sure. But deep down inside, it just that didn't even. No, I was like, I need to do more. I need to be, because for me, it's just anybody can train jiu-jitsu, and then you talk about anybody can compete, and it's like, oh, you can win this, and it's just kind of like, yeah, but I want to do things that haven't been done. I want to forge a legacy, so my family has something that gives it the ability to sustain itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if I travel more and I compete more and I teach seminars and I do this, I will always have more security behind my ability to financially support my family,
Right.
And to me, that's all I was doing, and walking into Ottos HQ is literally the definition of an MVP game. Everybody is there, is the best of the best, but there only can be one MVP of the MVP game, and
Sure.
to me, I walked in there and I was just kind of like, I had this ego that I was just like, these people should know who I am. They should respect me because I was already multiple champion I had prestige titles.
Right.
But these people are like, yeah, we don't care because everybody in here is, and it's just like, that was the thing, you look around, I'm just like, man, there were people that have done 10 times more than me that were just still hunting and grinding. And I was like, man, if that doesn't push, I don't know what does. Because half the people that I met before that time never won anything and they were still happy. And
Right.
I'm like, how are you happy? You haven't won a world title. And they were just like, I don't know. And I'm like, man, I need to win 20 of them. I need to win 2. I need to win 1 at black. I need to win 1 at brown. It was just like, I'm sure for some people, maybe it's this sick way of thinking about it. But man, it's cutthroat out there,
Right.
And as a competitor, if you're only competing, you're only as good as your last tournament that you competed in. And people are not going to have you in for a seminar unless you win stuff, and because they don't even care if you can teach or not. They want to be like, well, who's this guy? Because if you didn't win anything, they're not even going to pay to show up to see if you're a great teacher. And I've always thought that I've been a better instructor than a competitor. But no one's going to see me teach unless I win something first. So it was just like, how are we going to pay the bills? Teaching. Got to do better competition. And that was it.
Yeah. What was it like, so transitioning to Ottos, you know, training sessions, tell me about, like, what you did as far as, like, in the gym, like what kind of training sessions that you were involved in, and then what you did outside of the gym. What did you do for recovery, for maintenance, for keeping yourself healthy, for diet? What kind of things did you do? Because, you know, probably training at that high level, you know, multiple times a day, which I assume what you did at Ottos and probably other gyms too, getting ready for a training camp. How did you keep your body together?
Yeah, I mean, Ottos was the hardest training out of all of them. I mean, physically, it was very challenging in Miami because I was small, and it was just like I was getting the shit beat out of me. My jiu-jitsu wasn't good enough. But, I mean, an average day at HQ, not even during preparation, wake up, you do 9 a.m. class, so you train from 9 to 10:30, you know, and that's your learning aspect. So I'd go in there, and I'd be learning, I'd be trying to up my jiu-jitsu. And then obviously 11 o'clock is comp class. And there's no learning. It's just let's beat the shit out of each other. Let's figure out what we're doing. Let's get it done. You know, then immediately after that, you're having lunch, you're showering, you're going home, and you're taking a nap. You know, then you're coming back, and then you're either drilling. I don't drill. I hate drilling, but sometimes I would do it, but very rarely. But you come back, and then it's 6 o'clock class, and you're training again. But it's class and it's hard training because you got to get another training session. And, you know, and then after that, you're showering and eating again. And I did absolutely nothing in San Diego. I did nothing but jiu-jitsu. I didn't go out. I didn't drink. I wasn't hanging out with girls. I wasn't doing anything. All I literally did was me and Hinger freaking went to the gym. We trained. We slept. We trained. We slept. And we woke up and did the same thing the next day. And then on top of that, you talk about if you're teaching, you know, and I was also teaching at some point in time, but it was just, that's all it was, you know, and you got to get at least, for me, I was getting at least 8 hours of sleep every night. And then I've got a nap in between my first and second, my second and third training session. So, I mean, it was to a degree, it was a job, and it was not enjoyable physically or mentally. You're just like, man, I'm doing the same shit every single day. But because it was so precise and it was a very structured habit, you literally will immediately see what is working and what is not working. Because the control is so specific that when you make one minor tweak, you'll see how far you go off. Right. I ate the same thing every single day. I didn't do it. There was no. I had steak for lunch or dinner, and I had pasta for the opposite. That's all I ate. I didn't eat anything different. I wasn't drinking any soda. I wasn't drinking any beer. Like, I wasn't doing anything different because I realized that if I can stay consistent, I will get the same results. And that was what my mind was telling me, and that's just how I went in. But I mean, training was tough. You get hurt, you don't get hurt. You sleep, you don't sleep. You get a day off, you don't get a day off. But when you come terms for when it comes into preparing for a specific tournament, Andre then says, "Okay, we're doing camp now. Now you also have to add in lifting 2 days a week. We all go to the gym as a team." And it's like, man, how do we put this into my structure, my habits now? And it's crazy. It is super intense.
What did you all do for training, or like for strength training, and what kind of lifts, what kind of supplemental work did you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, so Andre basically will constantly change things up. So right before I got the Ottos, everybody was big into CrossFit, but CrossFit was so physically demanding that Andre felt like everybody's bodies were not recovering fast enough for the training. So when I got there, they started doing basically everybody just went to like 24-hour fitness as a team. There's 30 people rolling in there together. Yeah. Andre basically says, okay, we're using these 8 stations. You're going to get with – so if I was a rooster weight, so it was like, okay, Kristian, you're with light feathers and featherweights. You went in your weight classes with your partners, and you were at stations, and you were just shifting, you know. We were doing leg presses, and we were doing squats, and we were doing deadlifts, you know. But it wasn't anything crazy. I wasn't doing crazy weights. I wasn't doing crazy sprints or anything else like that. But I mean, it kept you sharp. I wasn't physically sore from lifting. You know, I wasn't lifting that hard to where I'm like, my ass hurts. I can't sit down in a toilet for 2 weeks or something like that. But it was just something that kept you sharp. And Some people were lifting harder than others because a part of their game was more strength. You know, the bigger guys were like Hinger will literally lift weights, and the dude is an absolute machine, you know, but I'm the opposite. I can't gain too much weight. I'm not strong, so I'm trying to stay fast. I'm trying to stay explosive. So Andre tweaked it. So like Josh would be doing squats and the weights would be heavier, and he's doing a deeper squat, pausing and coming up. The lighter weights would be less weight, and we would also be jumping, you know? So everything would be different with that. And then with more people coming to Ottos, it shifted over into Ottos had someone on the team that their career was a strength and conditioning coach. Mm-hmm. So he was running people through a program, and that's what they're currently doing now and everything else like that. But they're doing the same thing. They're on stationary bikes. They're doing squats, cleans, and deadlifts and stuff like that. But they consistently lift weights 3 to 4 times a week.
What'd y'all do for recovery? Physical therapy or massage therapy or chiropractic? What worked well? Like, what did you guys do, and what worked well for you personally?
Yeah. Andre kind of left certain things up to each individual person. So like your diet was up to you. If you needed help, he would talk to you about it, or be like, oh, you should talk to this person or whatever it may be. Your recovery was the same. So some people were big into massages. Some people would, after working out, they would go to the hot tub. They would sit in the pool. They would sit in the sauna. Some people would just sleep more or whatever it may be. For me, because of the amount that I was training and because I was keeping everything so crucial, when I was lifting weights or training, I could tweak my training sessions to where I knew my body was about to get hurt, or I could slow it down and I could almost actively recover. But I also know people, that they take pre-workouts, they take like protein. Everybody's in their own different supplements, whatever it may be. So everybody did kind of whatever worked for them. But as a team, nobody kind of like team recovered. We did have days where we had like mental days where like we all went to the beach or something like that. But in terms of diet, in terms of your goals on the mat, in terms of how you recover, that was all based on individuals.
Awesome. So how long are you still training at Ottos now, or you're back home? You're at your own gym now, correct?
Yeah. So like I've got my own academy. It's an Ottos academy. I am still allowed to represent Ottos, the A team, at the major events. But I kind of obviously we were talking about, I just had a baby. I just got married. We just moved here. So we've been in Philadelphia for about a year. Back home in New York. So like my academy's been growing, but, I kind of took off for competing for a little bit. So I'm going back to actively competing, as in like consistently, starting this season for September. So I'll probably compete 2 to 3 times every month. I'll do all the major events, but I'll go back to HQ and train. I'll do the camps there. So I'll go back to HQ for 10 days and then go and compete. And then I'll come home and train, and then I'll go to HQ for 10 days and then go and compete. So that'll be my game plan moving forward now.
So what was, as far as brown belt, when you won the Worlds, what was the difference? Did you expect to win? Were you surprised? Was it like you just happened to find yourself in the finals, like, oh my God, this can happen? Like, how did that? Were you getting closer and closer with each tournament?
It was weird for me. So my first year at brown belts, like I got my brown belt, and then like my first tournament was like Nogi Pan Ams. I won Nogi Pan Ams at brown. And then Nogi Worlds was like 5 weeks later, and I took second at Nogi Worlds. And I went so as a purple belt, I never won anything until the very last tournament that I won was Las Vegas Open, and I got my brown belt in the podium. Right. So like I was constantly always getting second and third places, and then all of a sudden I get this shift, and I get my brown belt. Now I'm like winning, and then I'm taking like at the highest. I'm like, oh man, this is different. But for me, like at Pan Ams, at Worlds, and at Europeans, for me, like looking back, I have had so much more challenge after that point. Like to me, like those tournaments were very easy mentally going into them, actually competing and being there that day. Like I look back and I'm just kind of like, I wasn't nervous. I didn't have any struggle. My weight was great. I wasn't injured. I felt amazing. Like I just did a great job. For some reason, it's almost like it's like a blur. But now, like after that, like in terms of like when I started putting in a lot of time into like my investment of getting my jiu-jitsu better, I think I put more pressure on my shoulder because I had more of an expectation to win now. Because once you win Worlds, people go like, oh, well, you got to win Worlds again. So like, I think by being successful in that, it gave me more pressure that I put on myself. which then obviously made me more mentally in tune with competing. Like, oh man, I've got to do this. I've got to beat this guy. Like, oh, I've never heard this guy before. Well, I can't lose. Like, so it was easy at Brown. For me, it was just like Worlds was easy, competing, traveling was easy. Like I didn't have any kind of responsibilities in terms of like that. And now after that, it was just like, oh man, I've got to really do this stuff. It's all of a sudden it's more challenging, which is why I kind of was into it. But it was really, really difficult.
What was the difference between purple and brown? Like not winning a purple and then all of a sudden winning a brown? Like, I mean, you'd think, obviously purple and brown competition level goes up. It may not be huge, but it is an incremental improvement. What was the difference? How did you go from like not winning to all of a sudden starting to like consistently be on the podium?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think at purple, I was very complacent. I was just kind of like, I wasn't stuck, but I was just kind of like, oh, okay, like I'm just like I'm learning techniques and I'm going and competing. I didn't have strategy in mind. I didn't have game plans in mind. I just went out there and I felt like when I went and competed as a purple belt, it felt like I was going to open mat or something like that. It wasn't like, it was just, it is what it is. The second I got my brown belt, all of a sudden it was just kind of like, oh man, like, okay, like we're going to kill these people now. Like this is real serious. Like this is my job. Like let's put people into the ground. Let's make sure we make an example of people. Like all of a sudden, like I became more aggressive and hungry. So like at purple, I didn't really care because there's just like, nobody cares about purple belts. But as a brown belt, just kind of like, man, like the second I got my brown belt and I won, I was like, man, I can't wait to beat the black belts. So for me, it made me very, very hungry. It made me sharp on the mat. I had this grit and this intensity and this ego that was more positively pushing me than negatively, So it's just kind of like, I'm ready to do it. Let's do it. So that for me, like brown belt had the most growth, had the most success out of all my belts. And I mean, I grew a lot. I feel as a blue belt, I was a very good blue belt, but in terms of like quality jiu-jitsu and what I was learning and the investment I was putting in, it all came in at brown because I wanted to get ready for black belt.
So kind of mindset shift almost, like kind of
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So not really, a huge. I mean, obviously you're getting to go from purple to brown belt. You're getting a belt. The next day you're not any better. You're still. So it's more of a mental. Like that's what I think. You're probably right. And being able to get up for the competition and being able to be motivated to train, I think that sharpens you a little bit and gives you direction. And I think it's a lot easier to train when you have that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I mean, as a purple belt, you're kind of like in the middle. So like if you get swept or tapped out by a blue belt, it's kind of like, okay, like maybe you shouldn't, but it's okay. If you sweep or you tap a brown belt, it's kind of like, oh, it's cool, you should be because you're about to get your brown belt. So like it doesn't like have any weight to it, any value in terms of the training. The second you get your brown belt, if you get your guard pass, you get swept by a blue belt, people question your brown belt. The second you tap a brown and black belt, it's like, yeah, you should be because you be ready for your black belts, but like you've got to be murdering the black belts if you want to make an example of them.
Right.
It was just a huge shift. I literally feel like overnight it did change. So even though I got my brown belt and I knew my jiu-jitsu wasn't better, that mindset shifted so hard that I literally was better the next day. And I was like, I've got to get this done. And that's all it was.
Right.
Yeah.
You said that you had fought MMA. Where did that fall in the mix? Like, when did you fight in mixed martial arts? And kind of, was that just something you wanted to do for fun, or kind of what was the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I had my first like smoker, like amateur fight in Philadelphia. Like I was only a blue belt, purple belt, I can't remember now, but I was like, oh, I feel like my jiu-jitsu is good. I did like 1 week of striking.
Nice.
And I just said like, you know what? I've got no problem. I'll just submit this guy, and I got hit more times than I wanted to, but I ended up submitting the guy anyway. So for me, it was just kind of like, I had this ego about MMA where I said, if my jiu-jitsu is good and I can make it so good to the point that it doesn't matter how good the other guy is at Muay Thai or boxing or wrestling, that I can still win, that for me is huge. I want to send that message. And so I fought once in Philadelphia. I then came to Miami. I didn't fight in Miami. So when I moved to Vegas, obviously it's the MMA capital of the world. So I just started like, okay, like, you know what, I want to. And obviously I wasn't doing well in jiu-jitsu to the point to where I was winning everything at this point in time. So I just started diving into it, and I was just like, okay, cool. My jiu-jitsu was growing. I was in the gym all day in Las Vegas, but it was a different type of training because I didn't have to do it. But so that shift was huge, and to be able to fight MMA to me was just kind of like, I can prove how good my jiu-jitsu is, because to me that was what you hear. Like you hear Gary talk, you hear these other guys that are like, if your jiu-jitsu is really good, it will be able to beat other martial arts. And that's how it always was. Like my last pro fight, I fought a guy who was a pure Muay Thai guy, and he literally didn't punch me once, and I took him down and I just ripped his arm off. To me, it was just kind of like, if this guy spends just as much time doing Muay Thai as I do jiu-jitsu and I still beat the shit out of him, that has a lot to say about jiu-jitsu. And that's what I wanted to put out there in the world. Like, jiu-jitsu works. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of an old school mentality because you don't really get a lot of pure striker versus grappler or whatever. You don't get that much anymore. Usually people are versed a little bit in everything. They kind of know a little bit of everything at least. But yeah, I think the best example for me is probably Jacare or Damian Maia. Like when Damian Maia gets on top of you, it's just like
it's over. Yeah. You're just like, man, it's just gonna do jiu-jitsu. And like even like I love Damian Maia and Jacare. Even Jacare, he's like he still tries to knock people out. Like
right.
Literally have zero interest. I do train striking now. I train other things, but I've got zero interest in showcasing my skills other than jiu-jitsu.
Right.
When I talk to MMA promoters, right, or I talk to sponsors, I'm like, oh yeah, I do jiu-jitsu. Like, yeah, I'm kind of like I've done this, but like when I fight MMA, all my fights are first round submissions. And like I don't get punched, I don't get hit. This is what I do, And it's just like for me, that's the kind of I want to. If I ever get signed to a major promotion, like I want them to be like, oh man, like do not let this guy touch you because if he does, he's going to take you down. He's going to do jiu-jitsu. He'll submit you standing up. Like I want to have such good jiu-jitsu that people will literally tell other people to not do jiu-jitsu with me. That's how good I want to be at jiu-jitsu for MMA. Like that's to me, that's huge.
Do you still want to do MMA? Is that still something?
I fought. My last fight was like a year and a half ago, and like it's tough because of my weight class. So I was fighting flyweights, and then I like started to fight strawweights. My last amateur fight, my first pro fight, were at strawweight because I feel big and strong at strawweight, and it's easier for me. Like if you look at a lot of the flyweights in the UFC, they're cutting from 155, 160 pounds. I walk around at 125, so I was naturally a flyweight fighting flyweight guys that were cutting 20, 30 pounds.
Right.
And to me, it's just like it's not practical. I can cut 15 pounds and then be big for the weight class below, but not a lot of promotions have strawweight. So, I'm still actively pursuing it. I still get inquiries here and there, and I still reach out to certain people here and there trying to get on like MMA fights. But if I can get it, I'll take it. But if it doesn't exist, then I just keep doing jiu-jitsu.
So you usually cut like 125 to 115, something like that.
Well, yeah. So I'll water load, so I'll be like 130 by the time I start my weight cut, and I get down to like 114. And I'm just disgustingly shredded, skinny. But like at 115, I'm all of a sudden the big guy because those guys are small. They're like, oh yeah, I cut from 120, but they're like traditional Muay Thai fighters or these little Mexican boxer guys, and I'm just like, man, I can ragdoll these guys. I wish I could do this in real life because it's just, for me, all of a sudden I've got strength. But on top of it, I've got my technique. And there's nobody that has, Bruno Malfacini now, but like there's nobody that's that accomplished in jiu-jitsu that does MMA at that weight class. So it's like, man, I've never experienced jiu-jitsu at my level in MMA. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, just the number of fighters out there is just not going to be there. It's going to be very, very slim pickings. There's not going to be a whole lot out there for you to, so probably getting a fight or getting a lot of challenges that maybe are worth your while is probably not going to be out there as much. So
yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I've one FC, like it's Ben Askren fights for them, Hodger Gracie, Brandon. Like they've got they have a strawweight men's division with a belt and everything. But I spoke to them. They're like, hey, like you're on the other side of the world. If you get 3 pro fights and you got 3 wins, we will sign you. But I'm literally trying to pay people to fight me so I can get 3 wins, so I can get signed by these guys. I mean, the practicality is very minimal. Like I'll do it if I can, but what I don't want to do is say, okay, you know what, I'll just fight 125, and then if I take a loss now my record is bad because I took a loss in a weight. It's a very strategy type thing, but I mean, if it works out, it does. But I'm I've got no rush. I'm patient. I've got the academy. I've got my jiu-jitsu career, so I don't have to go all in on an MMA career and make bad mistakes. But I'm also not going to cycle and get big and be strong and then go fight overseas. It's just not my thing.
Right.
So we'll just see. But all the time I'll get a potential fight, and then whoever on my end will send them my information to their manager, and the manager goes, "Oh, this is not a good fight for us. Never mind." And it's just like, it's going to happen a lot.
So I've got a solution. Get worse at jiu-jitsu. Yeah, right.
That or change my last name and then be like, "Oh, I've done nothing," and get a new Instagram account or something.
Yeah.
That's for me. That's part of the challenge too. Is I almost want people to step up and be like, "I don't care how good he is at jiu-jitsu, I'm going to knock him out." Because that's for me. That's like, yeah, that's perfect. That's what I want.
Right.
I hope that your striking is so good that you're able to do that confidently, because I want that challenge. Because I don't want guys that are just bums that are like, "I don't care if I lose, I'll take the payday," But like, man, I just want to get to the highest level, and I want to challenge myself.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is there – so we talk a little about MMA and then IBJJF and competing all these things. You also compete at EBI. Is there a rule set, or is there a format that you like just in general, not even necessarily jiu-jitsu? I mean, what's your favorite type of rule set, or even combat jiu-jitsu? Is that something that you would do, or is that something you even like? I've heard some mixed stuff about that. It's kind of like, might as well just do MMA. Like, I've heard, I see the merit in combat jiu-jitsu. Like, it can kind of keep people a little more honest. You're not going to sell out for certain positions if you're going to get, open hand palmed in the face. But also, not everybody's Boss Rutan. Not everybody can throw, an open hand strike like Boss Rutan. So,
yeah. No, I mean, like, I like combat jiu-jitsu. I think the idea of it is unique and cool. But the problem is like, when you're watching combat jiu-jitsu, it's two basically jiu-jitsu guys that are doing combat jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It would be different if you took like, who would be a good example?
Well, they had
like,
Wilson Hayes, I think, was in it.
Yeah. Like,
he was.
When you start getting, but remember, Wilson before he went to MMA was a jiu-jitsu guy.
Sure.
Right. So like, if you took pure MMA guys that don't compete in jiu-jitsu, and then you're like, hey, do combat jiu-jitsu, that would be cool. But like, you're still doing jiu-jitsu with I watched the last EBI, the combat matches where it was the guy from 10th Planet San Diego. He fought like
Boogeyman.
There was no strikes. No, not Boogeyman's fight, the one that was before that, but like his student. But there was no strikes at all.
Okay.
So it just goes to show you, like yeah, it's combat jiu-jitsu, but still you don't have to strike. But like if you get Wagner Rocha in there, like that dude will smack you. Like he's gonna smack you
he
until
wants
you
to smack the shit out of you.
Like, yeah, but like, he's more of a guy that I'd want to see in combat jiu-jitsu. Why? Because he's using the rule set of combat jiu-jitsu to compete in it, So like, combat jiu-jitsu is cool. I think it's like something that like, it's not going to take over the world, but like, I definitely can see it growing. To me, because of my style, I don't really care what kind of rule set there is. I don't care if there's points. I don't care if there's submission only. I don't care if there's no time limit, because like, it doesn't change my strategy. For me, it just sucks like when I'm not competing in my weight class. So like if I go to EBI and it's like 135, I'm like, oh, great, cool, this is cool. But like, to me, I don't care what event it is or what promotion or rule set it is, because I still have the same strategy. My strategy is to go out and to go as fast as I can, as hard as I can, and get a submission ASAP. And if I don't get a submission, I will do whatever it takes to get one, and that includes getting put in a bad spot and get submitted. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to get submitted. So it doesn't matter if it's IBJJF and Andre's like, hey, man, just wait and hold on points. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm still going to go for the submission. So I love ADCC, though, because I think it's like the great middle point in terms of rule set. But I like World Pro, too. You're talking about, like, the UAE talks about having a shorter time frame, but, like, you've got to do this and you can't do this. But, I mean, I feel like whatever jiu-jitsu is going to be in terms of the best rule set hasn't existed yet, and it'll keep evolving until we reach it. But, like, EBI is definitely, in terms of entertainment, easier to watch than ADCCs and IBJJF, but I feel still it can be improved, and I mean, it'd be great to be involved at that point in time, but it may not be for another 5 years, and then I'm done competing at that time. So,
right. Is there anyone like you modeled your game after, like going through the ranks and learning jiu-jitsu? Is there somebody that you looked up to? Is there any specific jiu-jitsu athlete that you really liked their style and you wanted to kind of be like or emulate?
I would say yes in terms of like conceptually, but not technique wise. So like I don't look at Andre and go like, oh man, I want to do that sweep and that guard and do that, or like, oh, I want to be the Mendez brothers and do that pass in that position. Like conceptually, like I gear my passing after the Mendez brothers, like outside passing, really quick, really, really fast, like methodical, make it look like the other guy sucks. Like, so I will base it off that. And then like, I base certain things off of Andre, whatever it may be. But like in terms of like technique wise, like I don't base my jiu-jitsu off of anybody. I don't model it after anybody. I don't try to mimic anybody. I just kind of like, I'm on the mat. I've got my goals, and I don't create new jiu-jitsu, but I create my style, and I just kind of like put things in, like I'll do something from the 10th planet system, and then all of a sudden I do worm guard, and then we're doing no-gi, and I'm doing like only guard, and then I'm doing passing, then I'm doing leg locks. So I mean, just depending on what we're wearing and what's going on, like my game is specific, but you won't be able to look at my game and say like, oh man, that's exactly like how so-and-so does it. Just not my style.
What did you do? So you said you don't like drilling. So how do you develop these techniques? How do you kind of build onto your game if you don't really like to drill, or if you don't drill?
Yeah, I know drilling is beneficial because I've seen it work for other people. Like Gianni Grippo is a drilling monster, and that kid is really, really good at jiu-jitsu. Like if I could, I wish I could like take his mind and take his body, and then I would embody him, and then I'd be Kristian Woodmansee but Gianni. But for me, like it's the confidence. So like if I want to be a home run hitter in baseball, I'm not going to be going to batting practice and hitting as hard as I can off of a tee, right? Like I want to be I want to have as efficient, practical practice as possible. Yeah. So for me, drilling it doesn't make sense because the other guy is just non-resistant base, and you're just putting on time, and you're just getting your reps. So for me, what I do with my goals is I'm basically, whenever there's a level change, which is why I feel like I'm better than the other person, I'll challenge myself, and I'm basically drilling on someone that doesn't know that I'm drilling on them. That allows me to now understand control, my grip sequences. It gives me more high-value information than just drilling on a dead body. So, I mean, that's basically all I do. Because, I mean, if you spend 10 weeks drilling something and you hit like 10,000 in 10 weeks, whatever it may be, I probably have to do a fraction of that because the value of that live type of practice is so much more crucial information-wise than what I got from drilling.
Do you do like maybe positional type rolling, like pass and defend type stuff?
100%.
That's kind of the modification.
I do a lot of, when I teach and when I train, I do a lot of positional stuff. So say, okay, I've got the back, I've got 2 hooks in a seatbelt and ear to ear. I can't lose back control, and if anything, at a minimum, I keep the back, but I want to progress and win. That, for me, is 10 times better than drilling back takes, and then I'll do the same thing with my students, or I do the same thing, okay, pick any guard you want, any grips you want. You're losing, you must sweep or submit. You've only got 1 minute, you're losing the fight, So positional sparring is important to me because it greatly mimics what competition is. Right. You've got 1 minute in a fight, you're either winning or you're losing. So, like, you've got to win or you've got to lose. So, like, for me, that's more practical. So I love positional sparring. I do it for every single class that I teach. And in comp class, it's like, I would say it's about 40% of what we do in comp classes. But, like, that's something that greatly impacts me. So that's what I do, but it's not for everybody.
Right. Is that, as far as doing that in your techniques, is that kind of what you thought about bringing to your seminars, like kind of the stuff that you're really, is there anything you feel like you're particularly really good at, or you feel like you're kind of good at everything? And then how do you choose what you implement at your seminars and what you teach?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel confident that I understand jiu-jitsu very, very well conceptually. So, like, I could either know a move a technique because I do it so much, or I can know a technique because I know the concept and the position that it's from. So for me, I mean, especially when I go to teach, like sometimes the hosts give me a very vague area to work from. Sometimes they don't give me one at all. Sometimes they're very specific. Sometimes I don't listen to them anyway. But to me, it's important to be like, hey, I need to come in. I don't know the level of jiu-jitsu that's there. I don't know if they're competitors. I don't know if they're beginners. I don't know if they're hobbyists. What can I teach that will make everybody take something away from this? Because to me, teaching like that is so much. I can just come in and I can teach one flying armbar for 2 hours, and people are going to be like, that was cool. The information may have been all right, but like I know that it's not going to hit everybody. So it's not as valuable. Like, do I like teaching this position all the time? No. But is it valuable? Yes. and that information I can deliver there is very high value because of the experience that I have. So I know that even if I'm teaching a world-class level black belt, I know that I will be able to explain it and break it down in a way that he will still increase his skill in that area that I'm talking.
Right.
And that's because of how I'm teaching it conceptually and the understanding of it. But like, I've been to plenty of seminars with world-class black belts that are like, here's a technique that I do. It's my favorite technique. Here you go. And it's like, oh, it's cool. Maybe it's a celebrity. It's an experience. But like in terms of learning and application, pretty much 20% of those people are maybe going to take something out of that,
right.
Whether it was a specific grip or the timing of it. But like the value there is so low. I literally, every time I go teach a seminar, I want people to go, that's the best seminar I ever took. I grew a lot from that. I can't wait for you to come and do it again. Because otherwise it's like, why just go do one and then that's it? No, I want to come back multiple times. So
right.
how can I keep this message to the point to where I leave and 6 weeks later you're like, hey, I'm still using that stuff and it's still working. Yeah, 100%. It works for me. I'm a black belt, so it should definitely work for you.
Right,
so
right.
That's what I go for every time.
Right. No, it's awesome. You were really you were very, very giving with your seminar for sure. Like you're like record whatever, and that's a big thing because sometimes you'll pick up a few things, but then if you go back and watch any video or watch technique, you actually get some other stuff because you've already gone through the movements. You kind of get the general idea, but then the subtleties. I think the main thing that I get from seminars a lot of times it's not really learning anything brand new. It's learning a variation. And that variation is what, as a brown belt, that's what I'm looking for now. Like, what's going to set me apart from another brown belt that does the same thing? How can I do that thing just a little bit better? Because that's what's going to make the difference. Just that little tweak, that little grip, that variation, that's what's going to make it just a little bit better to allow that position to be successful. That's what I look at seminars. You're not going to learn like a brand new move that's never been, invented before. Most of the stuff is out there and you can find it, but it's the subtleties I think is where it's at. And then you were really great at that, and I appreciate that because you walked around to each person. I remember numerous times you walked around, you kind of watched and corrected me and adjusted. And as soon as you made the adjustment, that's when I was like, all right, that makes sense. And then you get that light bulb moment where like, all right, I understand why we did it this way, and that's kind of the difference. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think when I'm teaching a seminar, I realize, okay, like, I don't know if somebody's wealthy, I don't know if they're poor, I don't know why, like, I don't know anything. So, like, I don't come in with an expectation of saying, like, okay, I'm going to give these people that, like, to me, I'm just trying to interact and I'm trying to let everybody shares the same passion, which is jiu-jitsu, and I have to make sure everybody enjoys this day for whatever reason, I mean, because some people may literally be like, hey, listen, no, if I teach something that's so specific that they're like, I've never been there, I've never seen that, and I don't care, that person all of a sudden has the potential of going from someone who's going to have a specific mindset and continue their journey in jiu-jitsu or be a fan or to buy a DVD or to come to the next seminar to now being like, man, I'm actually the opposite now. You're getting a 1-star review on Yelp. It's just like, whatever it may be, like it's important to deliver information in a way that no matter how people perceive information or learn, that it's hitting everybody. You know, like I'm just trying to make sure that the umbrella that I'm bringing in is webbing out as many people as possible. Right. Because some people literally learn only by you doing it to them. Some people learn by explaining. Some people learn by visually seeing. Some people learn by there's 1,000 different ways. But like if I come in and only deliver one thing in one certain way, you're only going to get a small portion of people.
Was there anything like that kind of gave you the confidence to say, all right, I want to start doing seminars, I want to start doing and teaching, kind of my style or my way of doing things? Was there anything that happened? Was it after winning brown belt worlds or anything particular for you?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I've been teaching since I was a blue belt. So, like, I obviously gained more responsibilities and became more of a serious instructor as my belts grew. But to me, it was part of the algorithm for success.
Sure.
I knew that I had to be an instructor. I knew that I had to be a great instructor. That challenge again, I wanted to be the best instructor. I didn't want to just be a regular instructor that just. So, and there's nothing wrong with it either. But I just you know what, I want to be able to create champions. I want to be able to have hobbyists. I want to be able to have people that are big. I want to have people that are small. I want to have white belts and black belts. So I wanted to be an instructor that could give to all. And I realized, like, the more that I travel, the more that I teach seminars with, the better my jiu-jitsu will be, the better my instruction will be, the more of a fan base I can create. So it was just one little piece of the puzzle that I knew that I had to do, and it boxed me in with making sure that I grew as a competitor and grew as an instructor. So it was nothing in particular, nothing overnight. It's like, oh, I need to start teaching seminars. But when I first started teaching seminars as a brown belt, you very rarely did you see any brown belts teaching seminars back then. I even had conversations with Drysdale, and he's like, man, like, I can't let you teach seminars at my affiliates because you're a brown belt. I have 8 other black belts that should go teach ahead of you. And then I'd be like, yeah, but I'm a better instructor. Don't you agree? And then he'd say, yes, but it will cause problems. And I'm like, I don't understand it. So whatever it may be, but I was traveling to Europe and teaching seminars and traveling the country teaching seminars as a brown belt. And people were like, why are you doing this? But the people that were taking the seminars were like, man, this information was great. You know, but again, I had to win something to get my foot in the door. Because they're like, oh, yeah, he's a world champion. Oh, it's only a brown belt. But, like, yeah, let's get him in the door. Now I teach those places once or twice a year, you know, and they're like, man, I can't wait to have you back. And these are potential people that want to be affiliates later on down the road. Like, so it was just part of the puzzle for success for later on.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think from Robert Drysdale's, and I can't speak for him, but that makes sense. Like, yeah, well, I have black belts. You know, when you're obviously purple belts can beat black belts, and that doesn't mean just because you have a black belt doesn't mean you're better than a certain level. I mean, generally speaking, yes, but not all the time. You know, there's always exceptions. But yeah, I think, you know, what do you talk about? You know, when you start as a white belt, you say, well, I want to be a black belt. You don't say I want to be a brown belt. You know, you say, so that's kind of like the ultimate pinnacle, you know, to an extent, you know, until you're a black belt for 30 years and then other shit. But that's the thing. Like, nobody's like, well, I want to be a brown belt. They want to be a black belt. And that's kind of that's seen as the standard, I think, the gold standard for training or teaching, or I guess being somebody that knows what they're doing. You know, when you see a school, I think you look at how many black belts they have. You know, because, I mean, when I started, it was like purple belts teaching. It was like one black belt, but he didn't really teach. Purple belts teaching. And now, like, you know, at Derby City, where I'm at now, like, we have like 4 or 5 black belts on the mats, you know, all the time, and high level brown belts. It was crazy. It's crazy, like, how many high level belts there are now too. You know, that's another beautiful thing. But yeah, I can see that. I can see the merit of, like, you know, being a black belt and that kind of being a motivator.
Well, see, because I mean, Drysdale has an academy that is. He's got MMA in there. He's got beginners. He's got competitors. So, like, in terms of consumers, it's important that a black belt is the representative. Huge, right? If you switch that and you go to, like, let's say, and it's a great example only because I can use it, but you go to Ottos HQ, Andre doesn't care what belt you are. He cares about the quality of information that you have to give and how you're able to deliver it. You will literally go as an American who only speaks English, and you could drop in at HQ and you could pay fine, high-quality dollar and learn jiu-jitsu from someone who can't even speak English. Why? Because of the information that they're delivering, and because of what they've accomplished and what it is such high value that he doesn't care. Because the person translating the information to you're going to be looking like, oh, man, those details, I've never heard that. He doesn't care what belt you are, you know? So for me, when I was with Drysdale, I was just kind of like, hey, man, like, if the belt matters around my waist now, why is it going to, like, I don't understand, like, what the difference is then. Like, for me, it was always like, if you care about your students, you want to give them the best information possible. So if I can't do it, I'm going to have someone else. At my academy, it's cutthroat. They're like a bunch of kids running around with war paint on their face. They want to challenge for the varsity spot. Because for me, it's like, hey, like, if you want to be the best competitor, you got to go win. If you want to be the best instructor, you got to be able to be the best instructor. So, like, and being in that kind of environment for me, it was just like, oh, it makes sense. And at HQ, that's where you're at. You're in a fucking shark tank. So it's like, if you want to teach, and you're teaching at Ottos HQ is huge on your resume. If, like, when I was there and I was like, I'm a head instructor at Ottos HQ, people would just have me out there even if I didn't compete, just because of that. Like, well, if you teach for Andre, you can come teach here. Like, yeah, of course. But, like, It doesn't matter. Like there are blue belts there that destroy top-notch competitors from any other academy in the world that are average Joe blue belts there. Just the standard, it's different. It's a different environment, it's different information. But, I mean, you got to think about, like, it, even now, it's like, I don't care what belt rank anybody is. Where is your value? Tell me what your value is and display it, and that's all that we're going off of. The belt is stupid. I hate black belts. I hate brown belts. I hate purples. I hate white. The belt system is stupid. Because I've met guys that suck at black, but I've met white belts that are amazing people, you know? So, like, but I understand it from a business standpoint for Drysdale, so I respected it, you know, and I understand it from Andre's perspective, and I respect it. But, like, you know, it's definitely a tough situation for people. Then it was huge. Now it's different. There's purple belt teaching seminars, you know. So, right.
It's not a one size fits all. And there's so many people doing jiu-jitsu, and it depends on, you know, what your goal is in jiu-jitsu. If you're just an avid competitor at purple belt and you're a world champion at purple belt versus just your regular, you know, brown belt like myself who does it like part-time, has got a full-time job, you know, I mean, that's going to be there's going to be levels. Like I always say, there's levels to jiu-jitsu. There's levels of purples, there's levels of black belts. I mean, there's such a variance, you know, in levels of skill and technique in black belt too. I mean, because it just depends. Yeah. Like some people could be a black belt and still be hungry, and some people could be a black belt and say, all right, I'm good. I've got a black belt. I'm just going to train a couple days a week and kind of just stay on the mats and keep rolling and keep my body kind of moving. And there's other people like, well, I'm a black belt now. I want to go win like you. You know, I'm 30. I want to go fucking win. Yeah. Get you know, get a world championship. And so, you know, it's just what it means to you. It's a what do you want to accomplish?
Yeah. No, it's huge. I mean, like as a consumer of whether you're a student and you're learning from an instructor or you're taking a seminar, like everybody perceives value as different. I literally have had people that said they're not interested in coming to learn from me because of my size. I've had the complete opposite where people say they're only interested in learning from me because of my size. Like everybody perceives value as different. Yeah. Some people it's accomplishments, some people it's physical size, some people it may be age, some people may be experience. It's all different to everybody. You know? For me, I'm trying to check as many boxes as possible so I can open as many doors as possible so I can impact as many lives as possible, you know? And that's just the angle for that. But I mean, I see guys that I've been in the same room with them that are not great competitors, that are not great instructors, that are not black belts, but yet they'll go and teach a seminar that they will charge more than Keenan Cornelius. How is that possible? Because they determine the value of it. The consumer is the one that's either going to do it or not. So, I mean, like, that's just all it is. I mean, I see it all the time. I'm like, who's this guy that hasn't won anything that's teaching a seminar for $120 per person? Never heard of him. But depending on who he is and where he's from, whatever, the people determine that value. Maybe the instructor knows him. And they're like, you guys have got to take the seminar. I don't know, you know, but I mean, it changes everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a point of contention too, because I don't know if I necessarily agree that you have to be like this world champion to be a good instructor or to be able to breed. Well, I think it's easier. You're more likely, if you're a world champion, to lead by example, to have other world champions follow in your footsteps. But like, I think John Danaher is a perfect example. You know, he's never won anything, and he's been dealing with like knee injury, like a severe knee injury when he was younger. But his mental side, his like ability to literally like break down positions, and I mean, he'll take one position and extrapolate it into like a 30, 40 minute, you know, conversation of, you know, you could probably teach a whole crazy course on it. That's the thing. There's two sides to everything, you know. A guy that's never competed at that high level, but has had so many guys like Gary Tonin and, you know, Gordon Ryan and a lot of these other guys that have won, you know, EBI and continuing to, you know, more and more of these guys that are just such good. They're so good at what they do, and they have a certain niche. You know, that leg lock niche is kind of, you know, they're so good at that aspect of the game. It's interesting, though. It's interesting.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. I couldn't agree with you more, and I literally have that conversation with people all the time. They're like, oh, you don't have to be a great competitor to teach. I'm like, I agree 100%, I think because I know great competitors that are awful teachers. Right. I know great teachers that are awful competitors, and I know some that can do both. I know some that can do none, but it's all the same thing, and it's funny that it's probably slightly off topic, but it's just everybody determines their value different. If my daughter needed heart surgery, for me, I would say I want to have the best heart surgeon in the world that has had the most experience and success with her particular case. That's what I would go for, right? I wouldn't go for the guy that has had zero experience in surgeries. Yeah. No, yeah. Right? Sure. But see, it depends on the value of things, right? Like now heart surgery is obviously greatly drastic compared to learning at a seminar or whatever it may be. But John Danaher is the Yoda of jiu-jitsu. I have taken classes with the guy. He's incredibly intelligent. Sure. And he's also got his resume to back it up. I haven't done it, but I got Eddie Cummings, I've got Gary Tonin, I've got Nicky Ryan, I've got Gordon. So people can brag for him, right? Sure. But I literally have met guys that are great competitors that can't teach competition mindset, that can't teach jiu-jitsu techniques, that can't teach concepts either. So it's tough because there's no mold. There's no this is absolute, this means this. No, it's not the case. I feel like I'm far more superior as an instructor than I am as a competitor. Some people say the opposite about me. Some people don't disagree about both, whatever it may be, But at the end of the day, it's always the customer that's learning, that's basing off of why they're drawn to that person. Why does John Donner have hundreds of students, But if you go to Checkmat is somewhere and there's you go to Jocker, right? Whatever, it's oh, he's only got 25. I don't know, the area, the people he's dealing with, who he's impacting, blah, blah, blah. But there's never determines automatically, there's examples and exceptions, of course, but it's definitely different for everybody, but not everybody has the same values and things as other people. Sure. It's crazy for sure. Yeah. So what do you still, sorry. Oh, you're good. I think I lost you. You're good. Yeah. So, what do you still feel like? So, the game plan for you right now. Are you physically how do you feel? Are you healthy? Are you dealing with any injuries? What's your state right now, physically, mentally, and where do you want to kind of go? What's your game plan? Yeah. I feel like my body's getting older in terms of what my body. If I experience the same thing I am now that I did 5 years ago, I feel like my body doesn't respond the same way that it did. Yeah. So if I sit in a certain way or if I'm in a certain position, my body doesn't react the same way that it did in terms of speed. And if it hurt, it hurts for longer, whatever it may be. I need surgery on my right shoulder really bad. Not really bad. It's always been bad, but I can feel at some point in time I've got to kind of okay, I'm done competing now. I'll get surgery type of thing. Okay. I have a slap 2 tear, anterior to posterior, in my right shoulder. So I literally sometimes it hurts so bad that it goes to my neck, and then I've got knots, and then I can't walk. But at the end of the day, I still got to train. As a 22-year-old. HGH thriving through my body, being able to do whatever I want to, sleep and then eat and fall from a train, be fine. That injury didn't impact me nearly as much as it is now that I'm 30. So okay. If I lay in bed holding my wife for 45 minutes the wrong way and fall asleep, I wake up the next day and I can't even move my arm. It's completely different than what it was years ago. But I feel great. I feel like every day I'm better. I'm at my best in terms of mentally and my jiu-jitsu. So I feel really hungry. I feel like I've got the best chance of winning every single day that I wake up. So now it's just kind of refocusing and honing in now what my daily routine is going to be, preparing to go compete. Sure. But mentally, I'm really sharp. I think I'm sharper than I've ever been. My jiu-jitsu is better than it's ever been, and both of those are growing every day. Now it's just kind of I've got to get it done now because I feel like my body's not going to be able to do it in 5 years. Right. So I want to make sure that I'm ready now rather than getting surgery and trying to do it later. So what? So for people who don't know, a slap tear is a labrum, which is cartilage in the shoulder. And why? Explain to me your thought process. You said you don't want to wait
Like, why do you not want to get the surgery now? Like,
Yeah,
can
so
you still function with that arm? You still have full good strength and movement?
I feel like my right arm, in terms of my grip, in terms of my mobility, my flexibility, my range is like definitely not 100%, maybe 75 or 80. I'll get into some positions and it's a lot different than what it feels like when it's on my left arm, my left shoulder, my left, whatever it may be. When it happened, I was younger, so I probably didn't put as much time and effort into it, but I did get multiple opinions. I got an MRI with contrast, MRI without contrast. I got an X-ray, whatever it may be. And basically, out of all the doctors I talked about, they all recommended surgery. One recommended basically not doing surgery right away, but then doing surgery anyway. But they basically all said, like, hey, so you may feel like you're not 100% now, but once you get the surgery and you get the anchors, you're going to need to take off from jiu-jitsu for X amount of months.
Right.
And then after that, you can do limited. And then after that, but they literally, every doctor, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they said every single doctor said you're never going to be 100% after the surgery. So back then, with me mentally thinking the way that I did, I said, well, like, if I can't be 100% with the surgery and I'm still able to have success now, I'll just push it off and wait till later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's progressively gotten worse.
Right, so, and it's going to, because that cartilage, it doesn't really heal on its own. The blood supply is not the best. So as you get older, you keep pounding that ball joint into that shoulder socket, it's going to not feel great. It's probably progressively going to get worse. I think it's dependent on the individual as far as the level that you'll get to. You may not get to 100%, but you may get to 90 or 95. And that's probably better than 75 or working at 75. Again, there is that aspect of you have to take 6 to 9 months off. You know what I mean? And then that is not for jiu-jitsu practitioners, and I deal with some of them all the time, like CrossFit athletes, jiu-jitsu practitioners. I'll kind of work with them. They don't like the idea of taking time off. That doesn't sound good to them. It's like, well, why the hell am I going to do a surgery? If I can still train with this injury to this aspect, I'll do that instead of taking 6 to 9 months off and then, quote unquote, not be 100%.
Yeah.
I think that, for most surgery, not most, but like this specific surgery, you may not be 100%, but you'll be pretty close to it, to where you may rehab it and strengthen it, because, if you don't do that stuff regularly and you actually strengthen, you might be able to get it even stronger in a better condition than your other shoulder that's never had any kind of, strengthening to, done to it at all. So it's relative, and I think it's also dependent on the individual. But I think your main thing was, I'm young, I don't want to take time off, I'm quote unquote not going to get as 100%, so what the hell's the point? Well, I think you can get to a certain percentage, but you also, unless you re-tear it, you're not going to continually decline and go from 75% to 70 to 65, to where, you can hardly lift the arm or hardly move it, or you get caught in an arm lock or a kimura and then you're done for a week or two, So it's relative. I think a lot of it's like people don't want to just take that brunt of not training for a long time and declining, physically or their game kind of taking a step back. But did you have any other injuries that you've had pretty bad?
I hurt my knee a couple times, partially tore some things, had like internal knee fractures, and I tore an ACL, and I sprained my MCL. I did a bunch of stuff like that. It was never anything to the point where I needed surgery or it was really bad. I mean, I feel like my left knee it's not 100%, but I can deal with it. And
did you tear your ACL completely?
No, it was partially. Yeah. So I mean, it's not something that feels good. I can feel it. I'm not sure if it's worse or better, whatever it may be, but it's tough. It's kind of like you're saying. It's all relative to the person, because for me, it's I feel like it doesn't matter about I could take off 6 months of training. That's no problem.
Right.
The fact of the matter is I look at the calendar year and I go, okay, if I get surgery now, that means it gives me 2 months to train for Worlds. I don't feel confident, which means I can't do Worlds, and I'll never get that Worlds back. that for me was the kicker then, and
Gotcha.
it still is haunting me now because it's like, hey, like if I like fast forward in time, I'm sitting down having a conversation with somebody after I die or something like that, and they're like, okay, well, you had 12 tries at Worlds, you know, and I go like, oh, well, one of them didn't count because I had surgery, and like the other one, like I was just recovering, like so I only had 10 good ones. He's like, doesn't matter, you know. I'm like, shit, you know. So, but I think you are incredibly correct in terms of like the ability to be stronger than I am now, even though it's not 100%,
right,
is super crucial. I think it's just the timing of it, you know, and I think realistically I probably should have done it while I was taking off this past like 6-7 months, because I could have given me the ability to got the surgery, rehab, and heal and everything else like that, and got strong. But I don't think I put enough energy into it to figure it out. I was traveling a lot, teaching seminars,
right.
But you know, I see now too, like I'm realistically going to stop competing as aggressively as I am within the next 3-4 years, unless something unexpected happens.
Right.
And then I feel fine with taking off 6 months and then doing rehab for 8 months and then getting back up to 90-95% because I won't be competing as much, if at all, you know? So
sure,
it sucks. You know, I think like maybe if I was even more successful, I probably would actually take it more seriously. But like I'm right in that cusp where I'm like, I'm not good. And I want to be great, so I should probably really shut my mouth and just train anyway. Like, man, a lot of people at HQ, like, no one tells you to shut up and just, like, rub dirt on it, but it's just kind of like, man, like, everybody's hurt.
Right.
Everybody's dealing with injuries. Everybody's taped up. People are going to the doctor. They're crossing the border to go to Tijuana because they can't afford to get an x-ray because they don't have insurance and stuff like that. Like, man, it's super tough, but, like, at the end of the day, like, I know, I don't know anybody at HQ that doesn't, if you said like, hey, I'll line up, step forward if you're not injured, everybody would stay still.
Sure.
Like, somebody's got something going on, you know.
You can't train at that level, man, and not get it. I mean, eventually your body's going to break down. I mean, you can't train 2 days, 3 times a day at that level. You know, were your injuries all jiu-jitsu related?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I never did anything other than jiu-jitsu, but I mean, like, all of them happened during jiu-jitsu, and they're because of, like, I remember when my shoulder got injured. I'm like, man, I remember when my knee got injured. I'm like, man, I remember the position. I remember what happened. I remember how it happened. I remember who it was with. I remember what round it was and the time that was on the clock. It's just, it sucks really bad. Is there
anything you could have done to avoid them, do you think? Looking back at it?
Had better jiu-jitsu, not been in bad positions, you know.
That's what everybody says, right?
I know.
That's not really it.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's just, my shoulder was during a submission. My knee was during a submission both times that, like, I heard it. But, like, it's just like, man, like, if I was probably a little bit more adamant with understanding position and, like, finishing the match faster or something like that, like, I probably wouldn't have got hurt. But, like, at some point in time, obviously, it would have happened anyway, you know. And it's unfortunate, you know, but, like, it also makes you, like, for a while, because of my arm, because of what I was limited to, it made me up my game in certain aspects, you know. So as much of it was as it depleted my game, it also increased other areas. You know, it taught me a lot about guard retention and understanding how to play guards differently. So it helped just as much as it hurts physically, you know, but it helped emotionally.
Right.
You know?
I think that's so true. I actually had a fracture to my arm, my radius, so one of my forearm bones, and I was actually screwing around with a buddy of mine who I've trained with for years. He's actually a doctor too, which is funny. But you know, he collar dragged me and I planted my arm, and I stood up, I swept him and I popped up, and I was like playing around, and I let him get my collar. I was like, I'm not gonna do shit, and it just happened, and I was like, never again. And that was, you know, that took me out for like 5-6 months, you know, just to get back. But I would go in, once the arm was pretty well healed, I still couldn't use it. I would do one-handed stuff and guard retention drills, and you know, just really being more active with my legs and my hips. So it helped me out so much. You know, because people kind of, sometimes when people see you like that, they kind of start licking their chops a little bit. They're like, oh shit, I'm going to get them. You know, and people that kind of, you know, would get the better of, they see that, you know, I didn't quite have everything working. Like, so it was a challenge. It was a challenge. Some people went after you a lot more.
The sharks smell the blood. They're like, oh,
yeah, it's fun, you know, but it's fun. It's fun to have people come after you a little bit too. And it's fun to survive in that situation when you usually wouldn't be in that situation. So Well, let's get to some interesting stuff. I wanted to ask you, so when you were at the seminar, you have some unique tattoos. You actually had one on your, like, on top of your forehead.
Yes.
What is that? I couldn't tell what it said. What is that one?
It's my daughter's name. So once we realized we were having a girl, we figured out her name. I was like, you know what? I figured, like, I've got a lot of tattoos, and obviously I don't have a 9-to-5 job. So I was like, I'll just get her name tattooed, like, on my hairline. I'm going to get my whole head done in terms of not my face, but my hairline.
Yeah.
But, so it was like, you know, what better way to signify the most beautiful thing that's happened in my life than a tattoo on my face? So went ahead and did it.
Awesome. That's crazy. I had a guy, I've got some tattoos on my arm, but there was a guy actually getting his head tattooed. Well, I was finishing up, and the guy he put like some kind of like numbing stuff on his head or something before they tattooed his head. But after I finished up, the other guy was getting tattooed, and it looked miserable. So I don't envy you at all. I mean, literally, like, it was horrible. Like, he had to put that numbing stuff on his head, put Saran wrap on his head, and like a toboggan, and walk around, like, let it all like soak in, so he could have like 20 minutes of numbing, you know, some relief of the pain. So,
the head is like loud, like it's a vibration.
I can imagine.
So it's like it's bouncing off your skull. In terms of like pain, it's actually not that bad. Like where her name wasn't bad. I've got something on the side of my head that was a little bit worse, but I think it all depends too on like the tattoo artist and how heavy their hand is, and like if they're what mag they're using. If it's like an 8 mag and they're using just an outline needle or something, but like it's not fun. But I've definitely had more painful tattoos, and man, it's at the end of the day, I don't know why people are into it.
How was the neck? The throat.
Man, actually, the throat was incredibly easy.
That sounds, dude. It just looks like I'm like people mess with my throat.
It was easy. Like he didn't like ram my Adam's apple, so he moved my skin around. And like the most difficult part was the challenging like the positioning. So like I'd be like my neck would be tweaked awkward for like 40 minutes, and like I'd be sitting down, I'd be upside down, I'd be turned on my side. But I mean, I just sat straight through and just got it done. So I mean, it was. I wish my head felt like what my neck felt like, but unfortunately it didn't. But I had it done by 2 different artists, so my neck is done by one guy, my head is by somebody else, and the guy did my neck is like more light-handed. The guy on my head is just like, hey, I'm going to get this done faster, but it's going to hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. So, but yeah, I mean, the neck was easy. My wife sat there and watched. She was just like looking at me, and I'm like on my phone, I'm laughing, I'm giggling, like it was really easy.
What was your first tattoo?
The first tattoo, I have a Paintball logo. It was my first sponsor on my forearm. I was 15 years old.
Nice.
But it's covered up now. You can't see it, but it was like I think they're still around too. The company's called Empire. So it's like a weird tribal-looking logo, but I thought I was cool. And, of course, I got it in the smack center of my forearm, and it's like pretty big. And I was the only kid in school that had a tattoo, and then all the teachers were like judging me and whatnot. But since then, it's been covered. But you can still see it if you look hard.
Yeah.
It was definitely a one for the books that I should have not gotten. Definitely.
Is there a favorite one you got?
No. I mean, I've got some unique tattoos. I mean, like my arm's like a bunch of weird like character type stuff. I've got some meaningful stuff too. Like I've got friends like are like diamonds on my elbow. Me and my best friend have it done. It's kind of like a girl thing, but I've got my daughter's name on my head.
Yeah.
I've got like Optimus Prime, the gold rope chain and stacks of money in his hand. Like. I mean, I've got like cool, unique stuff, but like they're all the same to me. It's not a big deal. I've got a pirate ship on my side with ripped sails, like it's like in the ocean to be like an understanding of like being adopted and like going through the rough life. But I mean, I've got tattoos everywhere that some of them don't even make sense. I'm just like, I just got it because I got it, you know. But I don't have any favorites. I mean, I enjoy like my neck. Like I think it's cool. Like I just want to have one tattoo that covers my whole body. So that's my goal.
It does not sound fun. Doesn't sound fun, man. I have my arm. I've got like I guess a half sleeve or whatever. I mean, it was 6-7 hours. I don't know how long it was, but it was freaking way too long. It was way too long. I mean, it was fine. It's all right, but I was like, God.
It's manageable, but it's annoying.
Right,
sure.
Man. You probably got like so many hours.
Oh, my ribs were like 7.5. My throat was like 9.
It's insane.
Yeah,
dude.
Stupid stuff. It's not fun at all. It's stupid. I know if I could go back in time, I would like figure out a different way of going about it. But like, it's just crazy. And I'm doing things that are like probably the next time you'll see me, like, you'll be like, oh, wow, those are more, like, I'm getting, like, more aggressive tattoos, like, more, like, things that, like, I want to get in terms of, like, not quality in terms of, like go get a guy that's, like, $10,000 an hour, but, like, you'd be like, oh, man, that is an aggressive tattoo. Like, people now see my head and, like, oh, that's aggressive, but, like, you have no idea. It's going to be out of this world.
You don't know what are you going to do?
Well, like, I'm going to, like, so my right arm from, like, my elbow down to my hand is like a tattoo because it was a cover up of my paintball tattoo, but it's going to be like this weird. It's going to kind of look like my neck, so it's going to be geometrical shapes. But the majority of it, I would say like 80% of the tattoo will just be pure black. So like I'll basically have a black arm with some designs that are around it. But so just have a black arm, and people will be like, my mom will hate it, but just start blacking out parts of my body. My whole hairline will be covered. So if I shaved my head, you wouldn't tell. Everything will be done. Everything but my face is allowed to be tattooed according to my mom. So the key is my whole hairline connected to my throat and then go all the way down my body. Have a suit.
Really?
Yes, sir.
What's the reason for that? I'm just curious.
No reason at all. I just like the way it looks. Yeah. I enjoy the way I enjoy being able to articulate to people without them talking to me. I like the look that I get from people.
Really?
By looking the way that I do, yeah. Especially like when I hold my daughter, and people like see me like being like a sweet, gentle man, but having like throat tattoos and a head tattoo. Yeah. People are like, "Oh wow, this is scary." I like that a lot.
So I always tell this story. Like, so my wife is from like a small town in Kentucky. Everybody kind of knows everybody, and she's got a full sleeve, and just that, she's got her side done and stuff. But she won like. When she was younger, won like a pageant or something at this thing. It was like a big state fair thing, right? And so it was like a 10-year reunion or some shit, and she was there, and some old lady like stops her and was like, "You're a lot prettier without your," just says it to her, like, "You're a lot prettier without your tattoos, you shouldn't have done that." Like, it's like, the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you say that to somebody? Like don't say anything at all. Like, it's fine. I mean, it's a lot more accepted now, for people, but like, you still definitely, like, I think you're always gonna get that look. I mean, regardless, and like, I think people associate tattoos with like bad, evil, whatever. I think it's more accepted now, but like you said, holding your daughter, like, with tattoos on you, and they're like, I don't know. It's just
confusing. Like, yeah.
It's looks. I think, it's the same thing about looks, man. You could be like, oh, he's a little dude, he's probably not tough at all, and then you do some jiu-jitsu on him, you mess him up. That's a beautiful thing. Looks can be deceiving. Yeah,
I think like back, like, I mean, even if you go back like 10 years ago, tattoos wise, like, it was social norm to have tattoos that were like to your wrists, but you couldn't get it in your throat, your face, your neck, your head, or your hands. And then you flash forward 5 years later, and like hand tattoos were all of a sudden like more acceptable. And then, like, your throat tattoos are more acceptable. Yeah. And now you've got people that are getting tattoos above their eyebrows.
Yes, on their face. It's crazy.
That will be the social norm. That'll be more acceptable. Like, I know people that are covered in tattoos. Everything but their face, and I'm just kind of like, man, I can't imagine how challenging at some point in time. Because it's not like it just happened. Like, they've been covered like that for 10 years, and you're like, man, people judge me, and like, I'll have a long sleeve shirt on, or just see my neck or my head. Right. And they're just kind of like, oh, I hope he doesn't steal my money, or like, oh, I hope like, I'm just like, man, like, this is crazy, but it's like you're saying, to each their own, but like, a lot of it's like different people. It's people with different expectations or traditions. Right. Like, my grandma would literally, if she was alive and saw me, would have a heart attack and die, because like, tattoos were not a thing of acceptance in her time. For sure. Like, to see her grandson covered in tattoos, she'd be like, oh, the devil has taken my grandchild. Like, like, so it's, who knows what it's going to be like in a decade, but I mean, hopefully it's more acceptable, but at the same time, it's like, let people articulate and like present themselves how they want to. I don't judge people. So.
Right. Like, I mean, if somebody walks in, some mother walks in with her kid and like wants to do jiu-jitsu, and she sees you and she's like, never mind, then that's probably not the type of people you want to have, so.
100%. Yeah, I don't want them around me. Like, I think like too, like, it's kind of like what you're saying. Like, it allows a very clear line to be drawn in the sand to know like the quality, like, because first impression is important. So I see somebody, I don't talk to them, they don't talk to me, they don't know who I am, but you kind of see right away already what boxes are being checked, and some people could care less. Some people care a lot. Some people care more than they should. But I mean, like, to me, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. And then people talk to me. Like, I actually, oh man, my brother just got married, and like I went to their wedding, and like the wife was asking me like about like if I was gonna grow my hair out, and like I'm just like, and she's younger than me. I'm like, I wonder if she's serious. And like they asked their makeup artist if they could cover my tattoos.
What?
It was crazy. It was very awkward. But like, and then I get there, and the reason why was because her family's more traditional, so I respected it's their wedding, you know.
Right.
And like the dad is like, looks at me, and he kind of like doesn't shit himself, but you can see he was whatever. And then like I gave my best man speech, and he was like, I've never met someone as articulate and as sweet as you, and to see that you're covered in tattoos, it was a big surprise. And I'm like, oh my God, that's great, you know, and I'm glad that you're 60 years old and you're still judging book by their cover, but like, you know, I appreciate the compliment, you know, but it's like, holy shit, it's 2018, what's going on? But
it's all about, man, it's all about like people's background and their upbringing, and you know, shit's accepted more in different places, and other stuff is not. So, well, Kristian, dude, thank you so much. I just want to know about your tattoos, so thank you for sharing that with us, man. Now, if people want to get you for a seminar, how can they get in contact with you, and how can they get a hold of you if they need to get more information?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on social media, so my Instagram is just my name, @Kristian Woodmansee. I've got my own website. It's KristianWoodmansee.com. I respond to all of my messages. So if you message me on Instagram, you message me on Facebook, I've got a regular fan page. I've got my personal page. So I use them both equally. But I mean, anything that has my name on it that I'm running, like I've got full access to. But the best way to contact me is through those. Email takes the longest. But Facebook, Instagram is the best way to get to me, to see the stuff that I've got out there, to see the products that I'm putting out, to see when I'm available or when I'm going to be traveling for seminars. But that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I can attest to this. We had you at Derby City Martial Arts in Louisville, Kentucky, man. It was a great seminar. You were very, you spent all the time, you were there answering questions. You stopped by each and every person, during each part of the technique. So I really appreciated that. It was just really good. I just appreciate it. It was really good, man. You did a really great job. Honestly, I can say that, and so, thank you again, and, best of luck. When's your next tournament, by the way? When can people check you out? When's the next one you kind of eyeballing?
I'm doing a lot of traveling in the next month and a half, 2 months, but I'm preparing for the No-Gi Pan Ams in New York, which is September 15th and 16th or something like that. Then after that will be No-Gi Worlds, and after that is going to be the Europeans, and then Pan Ams. So I'll do all the major events for IBJJF this year, which would be obviously Europeans, Gi and No-Gi, Pan Ams, Gi and No-Gi, Worlds, Gi and No-Gi. So that's my main focus as of right now. But just going to match and follow the calendar year for IBJJF and just go as hard as I can. So the next tournament will definitely be in September.
Yeah, and then you're doing seminars up until that point, and people can contact you to kind of get something set up.
Yeah. I mean, I schedule my seminars usually months in advance, just so I've got time to market them and advertise, and obviously get a lot of people in there. But I'll probably stop teaching seminars, because I'll space them out too, so I can train. But I'll stop teaching seminars in September, and then I'll go on a hiatus and maybe teach one or two a month while I'm training and competing. But seminars usually are kind of in August, I've got 8 seminars.
That's awesome.
But in September, I'll only teach maybe 2. So they're constant. I'll keep doing them, especially when I travel. I'll stop somewhere and teach. But once it goes competition time, it's just purely focus and it's less teaching. So I'll even have my own students or my brown belts or whatever, maybe take over some of my classes.
Awesome.
So I can prove I'm learning. So, so September is the ending. I'm actually finalizing some tour stuff up now, but I'll do a seminar tour huge in Europe in January, because I'll be doing a camp there after the Europeans. But if anybody wants a seminar, I'm always available.
So thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're awesome.
It's awesome to have a great conversation. So anything you need, let me know, but let's do it again for sure. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
No problem. Have a good night, man.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you again to my guest, Kristian Woodmansee, for joining me on the podcast. Make sure to check him out at KristianWoodmansee.com and also on Instagram and Facebook. get in contact with him, send him up for a seminar. You'll learn a ton of stuff, and it was a great experience, great teacher, great instructor. Also, thank you to my sponsor, Defense Soap. Make sure to check them out, defensesoap.com. I love their stuff. Ingredients that are all natural and antimicrobial, help you fight off any kind of skin infections you may get from the mats. They've kept me healthy. I can vouch for them. I love their stuff. So make sure, go to defensesoap.com. And thank you all for tuning in. Please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a review on iTunes. It helps so much. It helps me grow the podcast to get it out to more people. So thank you guys again. I'll see y'all for another podcast, and have a good night.